finger point, and that starts us off.
All
right, so we are back for podcast number 2. In case you missed podcast number 1, that means basically you were one of the 15 people that listened to it. I'm Dan. This is Dan.
Right.
We're here to pump you up. All right, so in podcast 1, we talked about how we were going to have this podcast to do like some educational things, and that is the intent. But we just got back from USAW Weightlifting Nationals, so we thought maybe we'd give a little update on kind of the state of the union and the state of weightlifting and the things that we saw, just because it was pretty impressive, pretty important stuff. So we'll start there. In general, I think that we agree that every time we go to a meet, it just keeps getting better and better in terms of the competition, the quality of the venue, and just basically everything that USA Weightlifting is doing to try to make the meets more like international competitions. So
yeah, like the cards don't move anymore.
Yeah, the devil's in the details, right? I heard some old crotchety dudes grumping about putting, pinned on numbers on people's hips and things like that. But those are all things that are done in international competition. The idea is that we're trying to make these meets more like international weightlifting meets. So from that standpoint, it's pretty good.
Yeah, that's been a thing I think this year that they're going across the board with, like Masters was the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's all good.
My one critique, Phil, if you're watching, is I don't know why they don't assign platforms. That happens at all international meets.
Yeah.
And it just makes, I don't know, it's not like it's a huge pain, but it's just like something that I think would just make it a little bit smoother.
Well, I thought it was on the list of things to do, right? Wasn't that one of the things they were going to implement this year?
Yeah.
Something like that with like the coaches' badges in the back room now, and you have to have have a coach pass.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, so it's all good.
But so anyway, the quality of the meets is up. The quality of lifting was interesting. Okay, so to kind of sum this up, on the end of competitive performances, like a lot of the A sessions, the top, we'll just call it the 10 in those A sessions, the lifting was extremely competitive, and especially numerically. Like if you watch that 48 kilo A session, like those girls were all within, I want to say from first to third, it was like a 3 kilo spread. Like
it was something
really tight.
Slim.
Yeah, and a lot of the weight classes were like that, with the exception of, the supers, really, men and women. And then the women's 90 wasn't like super neck and neck and close or anything like that. But that's kind of what you expect on the, those kinds of weight classes. They have their ebbs and flows and their ups and downs. Obviously on the men's side, with the Dragon being there, he hammered out a pretty decent total, but I don't think he wasn't really in high competitive shape.
Like 169, opened at 205 or something like that. So
I think he ended around 218, 220-ish area. So not his best numbers, but I don't think he was really in great competitive shape. We saw, we can start with the class that we kind of had the most personally invested in, and that was the women's 75A. We thought that our lifter was going to surprise some people and maybe put up a pretty decent total. She hammered out a solid clean and jerk. It was still really light compared to what had been going down in the training hall. She had a little trouble snatching, but that 75 kilo class, there were 5 or 6 girls that snatched over 101?
There were 3 girls. There was 101, 102, 103, and then a couple more 95s, or 98s in there, I want to say.
So, you think about that when you're closing in on an American record at 107, there's a handful of girls that have that, 107 within their vision, right?
Potential.
As you start getting up there, it's a little harder to hit those numbers, but they can now see that that's a real strong possibility. In the clean and jerk, I thought that Paige, our athlete, she got gold in the clean and jerk with a 120, but struggled at she had 2 misses at 124, and that's that, to be honest, was set as her opener. We actually dropped her down, which was a good call on our part. She got bum out, but from the competitive side of the top of the flights, I thought it was really tough. Really good weightlifting competition. In general, it seemed like a lot of the B sessions were bloodbaths. Like you looked on the scoreboard and it was
There's a lot of red.
reds everywhere. And I heard a lot of, there's two kinds of misses. There's ones where you just drop it on the floor, and then there's ones where, you get turned down by judges. And I was seeing a lot of the bar being dropped on the floor, not necessarily being turned down by the judges. And I heard some people griping and bitching about the judging, but I thought it was really consistent.
Yeah. It's happened every meet.
Yeah, exactly. And it's consistent, and I think that's really, all you can ask for.
Yeah.
That being said, it was a little surprising to me because
Gotta get the water jug out. Gotta make some noise.
it was a little surprising to me because the entry totals keep creeping up and they keep getting higher and higher and higher and increasing more and more and more. So my natural inclination is that more and more makes because the technical proficiency of the lifters is going up and things like that. But what I think we saw was the missing became really contagious.
Yeah.
And once you see one person miss, then I think it affects the mentality of the other lifters.
Part of it, and like my thought kind of on the other end of that is that like the totals had gone up so much that there's a lot of people that needed the perfect day, right, to make it there.
Sure.
Right, and then with the 20 kilo rule or 15 kilo rule, right, you got to open pretty high relative to what you had to qualify. So like if you're like trying to hit well toward your best lifetime performance that you had just to make it to that meet, you got to open up pretty high than what you're kind of normally used to. So just like larger margin for error.
Yeah.
So
I think we're also see like we've kind of talked about the Instagram effect on training and lifting and the whole thing. And I think one thing that you're seeing is like when you have social media and Instagram, you can kind of see what people are doing in training. And what we've known is, training's training. It's not meet day, and you can't expect because you hit a weight one time in training that's going to be what you hit or what you open with on meet day. It just doesn't work that way. The pressure's different, the circumstances are different, the lighting's different. You're at weight, maybe when you're training you're a little overweight and you're really fueled up. So there's a lot of things that play into it. And I think that's a big growth opportunity for the USA weightlifting athletes.
Yeah.
Right? And I still think that the ceiling is really high and there's a lot of untapped potential. It's just one opportunity for them to grow. Really.
It's really just a different experience for those people, right? I mean, we had an average of 9 to 12 minutes between attempts.
Yeah,
right.
And some of those B sessions where everybody's in at, let's say, a 300 kilo total. Maybe they're all opening at 130, 150.
Right.
And that's like if you have 15 guys in a flight throwing a couple misses, you can have 14 lifts in between attempts.
Yeah.
And that drastically changes your warm-up strategy. If you have that much time, you essentially have to re-warm up your athlete some way, somehow.
Yeah.
Whether it be powers or jumps or whatever it may be. But that's a whole nother strategy. And some athletes just want to sit there, right? Like, I don't want to get up and do powers or a clean.
Right. And that's a long time to sit.
Time to sit.
They're not used to right now. So.
Yeah. So it's like we talk about the athletes not having maybe a ton of experience in that setting. Well, the coaches may not have a ton of experience in meets like that where everybody's really lumped together and grouped, together like that. So I know that we've been doing this for a little bit, but like we had some athletes just sitting for a long time before they started their warm-ups, just because I'm like looking at the board, everybody's lumped together. I'm like, man, people are going to be missing. So we're adding attempts to our count, thinking that people are going to miss, right?
Right. Or we have people jump. Like everybody's in at 130, then everybody switches to 131.
Right.
Right. And then you got to hurry up or slow down or bump or you got to make the call. So it's
the whole game, the whole approach, and but hey, overall for USA Weightlifting, I think that it's a great weekend and it's a great continuation from what happened on the youth level. So, coming off the youth performances, I think the USA made a huge statement. I don't remember what they got. They get third overall as a team.
I believe third as a team.
It's got to be like the best finish we've ever had. But so that continuation into what's happening on the senior level is really nice. And for anybody that thinks like, because of all the changes at the, the top brass
Right.
of USA weightlifting. Anybody that thinks that USA weightlifting is on the down climb is just
Right. Wrong.
They're
Wrong.
silly.
Wrong.
They're being silly. Because there's a lot of future lifters coming up through the pipeline, and it's also pushing those senior totals up. So it's one thing, like once you start having a culture in a group of lifters that are really strong and really pushing the envelope and pushing the limits, it makes you want to do more. And as soon as we can have more people in Maddie's weight class, snatching 102, 103, 104, that's going to push Maddie to a higher level. And I only pick on her because she's, like the golden girl of USA weightlifting, right? But she needs some people in there at 69 kilos that can clean and jerk 130. Right? They can just enough to, like, keep bumping that total up.
I think that was part of what, actually I talked to somebody else from another gym, down south, and we kind of looked at that session, and it was pretty tight relative to what it's been in the past, right? You had a bunch of girls snatching over 90 now, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it used to be, people would snatch in the 80s, and Maddie would come out, hit over 100, and now you're starting to see that where, the whole field's just slowly creeping up, and they're pretty tight, so that 5 per second is really, really tight, but it's slowly growing up.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that there's kind of the other thing that I want to talk about a little bit was, the team competition, and this kind of is a nice segue into it because, we're seeing more and more teams put up team scores and be competitive. Sorry, a little dry pipe. But you definitely have juggernauts in the contention. I paid for that, so they're not really sponsored.
Product placement, though.
Juggernaut's always in contention. Obviously, we like Chad and Max, and we may be the minority, right? Cal Strength's always in contention. East Coast Gold's always in contention. The MASH Mafia is always in contention. Catalyst Athletics is always in contention. So you're seeing all those clubs kind of fight it out for the team component, right? And one thing that I think is really, really neat or really interesting, or something I want to point out is, we're fans of the Jug and what they do, and their structure and how they're choosing to grow athletes. It's not how we grow athletes, right? So they have a little bit different approach, and they've been able to recruit some athletes nationally and build their team up that way, right? And we haven't done that, or don't have the resources to do that, or can't do it, or whatever.
Right.
And so we take our lifters locally and we build them up that way. And I think it's an important thing to remember. There's a lot of people that show a lot of hate in the sport, and they pick out all the negatives and things like that. And you can be the best one of two ways. And I know you and I share this sentiment. You can either, for lack of better terms, you can either be the biggest building in town, you can either tear everybody else's building down, or you can just build yours bigger, right? And I know we have the approach of we're just going to build ours bigger. And when we came back, we were in that 75 kilo A session, we were in contention to go into second place, okay? And we were tied at third, but really we were in fourth with Chucky Welch from Juggernaut.
Right.
And we were sharing a warm-up platform.
With another rule change.
Right, exactly.
Right.
With another rule change. And so we needed to make another lift, basically. And, I felt like that it was definitely something we could do. We could slide into second place. And I really felt like, despite the meet not going well for Paige, there was still that opportunity to get silver.
I mean, it was there.
Yeah. And so we came back, and, I was a little dejected, and I always get pissed, and I'm I get kind of intense and things like that. And yeah, she got gold in the clean and jerk, but we really wanted the overall medal. We actually had the total we were going for. And, Chad from Juggernaut, he said, wow, you really had me sweating there for a second. And I said, Chad, I like you, but I want to beat you. And his response is, that's exactly how it should be.
Right.
And I think that that's something that gets lost, where people don't want to grow and create and do their own thing. They would just want to tear down what somebody else is doing, right? I want to beat every lifter there, but I only want to beat them if they're at their best. I don't want them doing poorly. And I thought the 75 kilo A session was a great example of that, because from the American Open to Nationals, those totals went way up, and the depth of the field went way up. And it's you can't just show up and win. Right. You got to show up and have your A game. And kudos to Chucky Welch. She made a lot of changes.
Yeah.
Right. Her technique looked better than it's ever looked. And that has to be a PR total. I mean, I gotta think.
It's gotta be. She went, what, 107? Well, I mean, she went, what, 100 and 107 at the Open?
I don't know, but
something like that.
yeah. So I just think, but the take home point there is you know, you can want to beat somebody and not dislike them. Right. And I think that once you've been around a high level of sport for a long time, you realize that, you know, that's the case. Just build your athletes up, do your thing, stick to your visions, your goals, and, you know, you can win. You can build the biggest building, right? You don't have to tear everybody else's building down.
Right.
So that was one good takeaway I had from an otherwise me getting a little pissy during the 75A session.
You know, but, you know, like, expectations are high. You know, like, obviously the photo of your mad face is out there. You know, we saw the other day.
It's just blasting the internet.
You know, which is okay.
Absolutely. And then, you know, in fairness to our athletes, so we've talked a lot about Paige because, you know, that was our hope to definitely walk away with a top 3 finish. We actually, you know, like a lot of people, we're planning on winning. That brings us to like looking at nationals with a critical eye, right? So as soon as it was done, I almost like started instantly debriefing with our coaches. What can we do better as a team? Did we peak too soon? Did we what can we do better instead of like, you know, like what the judge is and all that other shit,
hoorah or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's like we can do things better to, you know, to be winners. So originally I was a little unhappy with our performance because we go on record to say this: we didn't have an athlete make a single opener, snatch or clean and jerk.
No, Paige made her opening clean and jerk.
Oh, you're right.
That was one out of all the, like 1 out of 6.
Yep.
Or did Carla make her first one? No.
She bomb snapped actually. So.
Well, no, but clean and jerk, right?
She made her second.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
So we had to.
One.
Yeah, we had to kind of sit back and think like, what did we do? And you know, part of it was we put an athlete in the meet. Had I been thinking a little more critically, I would have had him not participate in the meet, but we put him in as a 105 just to do it in the B session. He had been injured after winning the U25 Nationals, and his original plan was to snatch 110, clean and jerk 150. And we were going to go like 110, 115, maybe 120, because he hadn't been training heavy.
But those don't add up.
No, those don't add up to the 20 kilo rule. And, you know, the TCs came back there and told us, hey, you got to change this. So he goes from opening at 110 to 122, which is a tough spot when you haven't lifted more than 100 kilos in the last 4 weeks. Right. So that being said, like I was like, okay, I can give him some slack on not hitting his opener. Then we had...
But it was his first USAW Nationals for him, as well as the other 4, like it was their first national meet, their first U.S. Nationals.
Yeah, so we had Carla in as a 53 and Trevor in as a 94. Trevor had gotten married and been on a honeymoon until last week. Yeah. And Carla had moved across the country and driven across country literally 3 times between wedding, jobs, and stuff. So you're like, okay, that's not optimal.
Right.
That's not optimal training leading up to a national meet.
Right.
But now Butters, he gets no slack.
No.
He had all the time in the world to prepare. Right. We dropped his opener down.
Right. Zero slack.
Yeah. So I love Butters, but you know, he gets no slack. So, you know, I kind of took a deep breath and stepped back and thought, all right, maybe our performance wasn't as bad as I thought it was. I'm just a high standards individual. I focus on, you know, like high performance, you know, and high quality process leading up to it. So that's why my first question was, what can I do to make this process better, to put our athletes in a better position to succeed?
Right.
So, but we started making those adjustments and having those conversations, which takes us right up till, well, today really. So I went from nationals to Columbus weightlifting to work with Cirque du Soleil, which is not a clown show.
It's not. It's a people fitting in small boxes show, right?
High performance trapeze artists and that sort of thing. And I went there because I think it's pretty well documented, you know, my relationship with Mark Canella and kind of what he's done to help us develop athletes. And so I went there as a favor to him to help him out. And he knew that I really wanted to talk about our year training program and things like that. So we went ahead and kind of bounced some ideas off each other, and we got a pretty good plan, you know, I think moving forward with our next group of athletes. The next time we'll compete as a team will be September,
All right, so
Series 3.
and then we'll have a meet here. So we'll have a meet mid-July, mid-summer. You know, so we'll get everybody qualified for the September meet. Look to have a good showing at Grand Rapids. Enter a team, post a team score. Try to be, you know, one of those teams of that national meet that, you know, can, you know, add some value to the mix.
Yeah. And then the last thing, like if you stuck with us through the first 20 minutes of this, God bless your soul.
Right.
But I think it's important in weightlifting in general. It's somewhat of like weight your turn sport, right? The longer you're in it, the more consistent you are with your effort, the more you're going to be rewarded. And I think that goes for the coaches, the athletes, everybody. Like I see a lot of people just wanting to fling themselves to the front of the pack. Like, I mean, there's no harm in wanting to be at the front of the pack and be the leader. But you have to have a process to develop it, and you better love that process. And I know this is something we've talked about, you know, privately, is I absolutely love the process. We would joke, like, you know, I like taking the people that you look at them and you're like, this dude should not be able to lift
and then,
his finger, let alone snatch 140, and then, you know, there it is.
It's there.
Right, so I enjoy that process, and I think that just as a, you know, friendly reminder or a word of advice to young coaches, just enjoy the process in building up your athletes and experiencing nationals and experiencing all those things, because it's only going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool to see people that, you know, like when they come in and they have no idea how good they can be,
For sure.
And next thing you know, like they're on the bar, and you might find the next national level competitor, which I know we found, right? You know, like again and again, right? You find somebody and you're like, hey, in a year you're going to be like way further along than you believe.
Yeah,
So
absolutely, it's a serious process. So with that being said, we'll bid you adieu. Next time we will bring you something that is 100% educational. We'll try to teach you a little bit. But thank you for tuning in and watching this Nationals recap.
Out.